Hello everyone, my name is Leighanne and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my top 6 books in 2016. So I'm actually filming this video a little early. It's not quite the end of 2016 yet, but I pretty much have a pretty good idea of what my 6 favorite books were. So without further ado, let us go ahead and get started. Coming in at number 6 on the list is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I do not have a physical copy of this book because I did listen to it on audio. If you've ever read a book by Gillian Flynn, she writes fucked up characters so well, and everybody praises Gone Girl, but I think that this one was probably my favorite. The psychology behind it was something that was really interesting to me, and there were parts of that psychology that I very much related to, if that makes any sense at all. But overall, it was just a very entertaining read, and I usually am one of those people that knows exactly what's going to happen. I can see things 3 miles away. Very, very rarely does a book take me by surprise in its, the twist ending or the plot twist or, whatever the case may be. This one actually did surprise me for some reason. I don't know if I was just so engrossed in the characters that I did not really see what was happening, but those reasons are why I included this in my top 6 in 2016. Coming in at number 5 on the list was American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is actually another one that I did listen to on audio. I listened to this as a full cast production and it was done beautifully. This was actually the second Neil Gaiman book that I have ever read or listened to. I really enjoyed the mythology aspect of this and all of the different gods, and it's the take on modern America and things of that nature. It was beautifully written, and I think one of the reasons that I enjoyed it so much was actually the full cast production. Not that I wouldn't have enjoyed it otherwise, because I did very much enjoy the actual story. I've always really loved mythology, and I think that's one of the reasons that I gravitated so much towards that. But there were a lot of underlying themes in this book that I just very, very much enjoyed. I definitely highly recommend this. I did see on Goodreads where some people are like, oh, this book was awful. Sorry, I disagree. If you were gonna pick somewhere to start with Neil Gaiman, I would maybe start with this. It's very, very good. Coming in at number 4 on the list is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This was a book that I had since it first came out, and I don't know why I waited so long to read it, because I loved it. I loved it, okay? The main characters in this book and the dilemma that they're dealing with, and just the setting of this book, the Night Circus itself. The way that the book is written, it really pulls you into it, and you're really immersed in this amazing setting and this amazing circus. And there were a couple flaws in it for me, but I have found myself thinking about this book several times since I have read it a couple of months ago, and there's really only been a handful of books that I read this year that really kind of left that impression on me, and so that's why I included this in my top 6. Number 3 is Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and again, I listened to this on audio. I don't remember the narrator's name, but he did a fantastic job. I really, 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 really love the musical Phantom of the Opera. I actually really loved the movie with Gerard Butler as well. So that was one of the reasons that I chose to read it. Also, I'm trying to read more classics. This is probably one of my most favorite classic books that I have ever read, for a multitude of reasons. Just the way that it was written. I was familiar with the story from watching the musical and the movie, and there were definitely some, differences in between those two, but overall, I really, really enjoyed it. And then I listened to the soundtrack for a week straight, and my husband did not appreciate it, but it was very enjoyable. And if you enjoy the Phantom of the Opera musical and you have not read the book, I highly, highly recommend that you do so, because it was very good. Coming in at number 2 were books that I also do not have the physical copies of. I have ebooks for these books, actually. And this is actually more or less a series versus just one single book. And it is the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I technically have only read books 1 through 3, but I loved them so much. They were really quick reads, and as you saw from my inclusion of American Gods, mythology is something that I very much enjoy. I actually have this huge coffee table book of nothing but mythology from different parts of the world. So it's something that has always interested me, and I think that that's one of the reasons that I gravitated toward this book. But the way that it was written, it was very fun, but there were also those serious themes and everything, and I think for it being definitely a young adult or middle grade. I don't know which you would consider this because I really suck at doing the whole genre thing. But honestly, I think that this is a book that anyone at any age could read, which is why I included it on this series. So that brings us to number one. Number one for me was actually sort of a tie in between two books. And one of the things that I have been trying to do in the last month is really read more diversely. I'm sure you guys have seen the things in social media about own voices authors and, you know, really making an effort to be more inclusive of people of color or people who just aren't straight and white in literature in general. So that has really prompted me to kind of reevaluate what I've been reading and, you know, really be more inclusive. And I did talk about this in my goals for 2017 video where I talked about how I'm going to be participating in the diversity bingo. But for December, I actually did, you know, just go ahead and start this challenge with two different books that I had. One of them was Under the Udala Trees by Chinolo Okparanta. And let me start off by saying that I don't actually remember reading a book this year aside from this one that had a queer main character. Not only was this a queer main character, but it also took place in Nigeria during the Nigerian Civil War. And the way that this was written, it incorporated the folklore of the region, it incorporated the language of the region as well as, you know, the culture in general, and it was very, very beautifully written. And it was really eye-opening for me not having read something like that before, and it really impacted me. This is a book that, like, I'm still thinking about. I finished it a couple of weeks ago, and I still think about this book very, very much, you know, and just kind of the impression that it's made on me. I won't go into too much detail, but the main plot of the book is we follow Ejima as she first deals with the loss of a parent during the Nigerian Civil War, kind of the emotional loss of a second parent, where she is sent away from her mother, and from there kind of discovers her sexuality and what happens as a result. But like I said, the book itself is just very, very beautifully written, and the insight that it offered into the Nigerian culture was extremely valuable to me. This was actually her debut novel, and it was wonderful. And I can definitely go ahead and say that I will be reading anything else that she comes out with because I did love this book so much. And the book that it actually tied with was The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Now, I had seen this movie years ago, and I remember really enjoying the movie. And reading it was actually a completely different experience. I will say that I very much appreciated the film translation of this book. However, I think that you do get something else out of it from actually reading it. And it is written in letter format. The main character, Celie, talking to God, and then her letters from her sister, and then her writing letters to her sister. And this book has been challenged for many reasons, many of those reasons being the abuse that it depicts. And this book actually kind of fucked me up for a couple different reasons. The language in which it was written, you know, someone who was completely uneducated. And I actually had somebody, as I was reading this and updating my, you know, status and everything, somebody commented on it and said, "I hope you found this book more interesting than I did." And I thought to myself, how do you not find this interesting? And I honestly think that if you don't find it interesting, you're not reading it wrong. You're not seeing the intent of the author, and you're really not seeing what's happening in this book. You're not seeing what it's talking about. And that just, like, the comment that they, like, I understand not liking it, you know, because everybody is entitled to their opinion, but I don't know how you can read this and say that it's boring. I feel like this is a very valuable piece of literature for the African American community for a multitude of different reasons, and I loved it. And like I said, this book fucked me up. It's just hard to fathom some of the things that are in this book. You can look at the situations that happened in this novel and know that they happen to real people. You know, the depictions of abuse and such, like, it was just so powerful to me in so many ways. And that is why this has made it into the #1 spot and why it tied with the other books, because both of these books really kind of opened my eyes in a way to things that I may not have really seen before. I really wish that I could articulate the way that I feel about this book a little bit better, but I'm still kind of processing it. And also, it's a book that I'm never really gonna understand. As a white woman, there's just no way for me to fully understand, you know, the things and the situations that happen in this book. but it was extremely powerful to me, and if you have not read it, I highly recommend that you do, because it is a very, very powerful, very well written book. So those were my top 6 favorite books that I read in 2016. Comment down below and let me know if you have read these books, you know, how you feel about them. Did you like them? Did you not? That kind of thing. Remember, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.